Hey everyone, this is Meyer, and I want to show you how easy it is to rip off someone else's beat from BeatStars. No, I'm just kidding. What I want to do is show you how easy it is to take a beat that, let's say, a rapper or a producer sends you and they say, hey, this is the general idea of what I'm looking for, but we want you to put your own spin on it, or I want to do something different. So usually what this means is me matching the structure and the tempo, but just swapping it in. A lot of times rappers that I work with, they'll start with another beat or another song and they'll use that as a structure, and then they'll say, hey, I want a beat for this, but I don't want to be copying or doing anything else. So let's go ahead and show you how I often work when this happens to me. So I'll go ahead and open up FL Studio, and I'll take the project that the stems of that I want to work with, and I'm just found this sample project, and I'm going to just plop them in here. And the first thing that I want to do here is actually mute all of the sample pieces because I don't even want to hear them, because I don't want to get too caught up in that general idea. I want to do my own thing. The next thing we want to do is set our tempo. We want to make sure we're matching. Now, sometimes what you can do is you can find a tempo, find a track, right click and click on the detect tempo, and it'll try to detect it as best it can. But I find often sometimes these things are labeled. So this is 63. So I'm going to set the tempo to 126. I like working in the range from 90 beats per minute to around 180. So if I see a tempo that's like this, I'm just going to double it and put it here. So if we take a listen, this is what we have. Sounds pretty simple. So what I want to do is basically take this pattern and do something similar in the same beats per minute, but have a little bit of fun with it, do something a little bit unique. So there are a couple ways we can do this very quickly to get started. So I'm going to create a new pattern and call it kick. And I like making all my kicks kind of gray like this. So I'm going to drag this over and put it here. Now what I can do is take this kick sample, and what I'm going to do is open up the piano roll, but I can take my kick audio and drag it into the piano roll. Now that's weird, right? What does this do? Well, this actually creates the waveforms where I would want the kick to be. So for my new kick, it's going to be around here. In fact, actually, I don't want to do that because it's going to just play that. But I want to do this here. So really the point here is to just kind of match what this waveform is doing to get a similar beat. So I can start with this and drag it over. And if you look here, it's basically doing the same thing over and over. So I really only need this particular section. So now that I have my kick pattern, I can put this in here. And now I have my own kick that is doing this kick pattern. So what I want to do here is try to match this arrangement as much as possible. So that's what I'm going to do. And now this is a good time to probably add some markers to match. So what I'm going to do here is go here, time markers, add one, and I'm going to put start. This is when the actual beat comes in. So this is more like the intro. This is the sort of, I guess this could be the sort of verse or the hook. Usually we start with verse, so we'll just start with verse 1. And then if you look here on this sample, we can see after 16 bars, which is pretty standard, we go to a filtered version of the beat. So I want to go here, and maybe this would be like the hook. Then after 16 bars, it looks like we go back to the second verse, so verse number 2. Then we go over here. Now this would be probably the hook again. And then lastly, this last part, this is going to be the fade out. And then over here we have the song end. So look, if you look at the waveform, it kind of fades out. That's what we want to do. So now we have the kick, so I can mute this. Now we want to go ahead and take a look at the hats. So one thing I can do is, looking at this hats, I'm going to right click and open it in a new SliceX channel. And what I want to do is just auto slice the hats. Now, why am I doing this? Well, this way I can actually get the hat pattern that is being done here. We don't want it to be too fine, but it looks like it's hitting all the points that I want. And I don't need a huge portion. I don't need the whole thing. I just need enough. So what I'm going to do is make a new pattern, and I'm going to call this closed hat. And we're going to give this a color. I'm going to plop this down here, and what I'm going to do is go ahead and go. Unfortunately, when I did the slicing, it cut the MIDI to the kick, But if I click this button on the pattern, it'll just plop it in there, which is what I want it to do. And now if I go back to the kick, we can just housekeeping. I'm going to delete it from this point so I have this hat on its own pattern. So now if I play this, it's playing the hat. Now I want to be able to use my own hat. So what I can do is take this, and that's what I'm going to do. I don't need the whole thing because notice how here after 128 it just kind of, it basically just cuts off, but it doesn't really matter because what I care about is the rhythm. So I'm going to hit, I'm going to cut this and I'm going to put it on a hi-hat channel. So paste it in here. And one of the problems if I play this is they're all playing different notes. Which is not what I wanted to do. So instead what I can do here, to get them all to play the same note, I'm going to click on the tools and I'm going to click limit. And I've already done this so that it wraps only to the note C5, which is what where the piano roll in FL Studio is normally mapped. But if it's doing the whole keyboard, basically you can click and drag it around, or double click and it'll map to just this one note. So now what I have is all of this entire pattern on a single note, and I don't need this last one. So this is what this sounds like if I just play the pattern from this part. So one thing you'll notice here is there's no velocity. It loses the velocity information because I've just gotten the slices. And one of the things you can do if you want some velocity is you can either draw it in yourself, which I often do, or if you want to be lazy, you just go over here to quantize, turn the start time and the duration down, and select one of these patterns. This is kind of an eighth note beat, so what I may do is just eighths hip hop, and you just want to adjust the velocity of how much you want it to do this. Now I may do this eighths only, so it's a little bit more strong. So now if I play it, sounding pretty good. So now if I go over here and I take my hat out, oops, that's the snare, we have, and this is where this starts. And one of the things I'm noticing here is it's a little bit too strong in terms of the quantization. So I'm going to come back here and start it back and just select a different pattern. Maybe this. And at this point, we can start having some fun. We can just start listening and say, where does it make sense to actually add some more notes, do something a little bit different? Because right now, this is just pretty simple. And one of the things I may do too is I may go over here and click on the scale levels and just bring these bottom notes up a little bit. And one of the ways you can do that is just to take the multiplication down and bring the offset up. So here's a point I want to do something a little bit different. Maybe I'll bring it down, select it, and then go to, let's say, chopping, and we can go. And this kind of controls how quickly it's chopped. And here's another place, maybe we just go here. You can do Alt-U. Maybe a little bit quicker. Just have some fun with it. I'm right clicking and dragging to get these different hat rolls. And now we have something a little bit more interesting that I can copy and paste across. So now at this point, I do have this snare in here. This is really simple. So for this one, I'm just going to create a channel that says snare. click it in here and just follow what's going on. So what this is doing is like this. And then on the end, at the end of 8 bars, we kind of do something a little bit different. You can hear it. So what we're going to do is just take this and, oops, put it like this. And I believe what's going on here, if I take a listen to the pattern, just like that. So, yep, that matches. So now we don't need this anymore either. And if we take a listen, and this is where we can start replacing our samples if we don't like them. So this is my kick. My snare I'm not a huge fan of. So what I'm going to do is go over and under my drum hits I should have, I have snares, I have claps. Usually under here there are a couple good ones. Some of these. I'm trying to think. There are a few. Maybe under here. I think number 5, is it? Yeah, I like that one a lot. Cool, sounding good. And at this point, one of the things you can do is start looking for a sample or finding something. Now, for the sake of time, I don't want to be really digging around and finding something too complicated. So what I think I'm going to do is just go over here and, I don't know, just I'm going to put soul. And in terms of what I'm looking for, this is splice, is I think what I want to do here is type. I want to do loops. And you can adjust this for the tempo. I like that. So I think what I'm going to do is just add it and then click and drag it in here. Now we are going to need to stretch this because this is at 120. So I'm going to right click and I'm going to change this to auto and time auto detect. I'm actually going to, well, I got it right. It's 120. So I'm going to click that. It'll stretch it, and let's just put this in. I need to just kind of put that in and turn it down. And lastly, the thing you'll probably want to do is put on an EQ or a filter. Set this to low pass if you really want to be ripping off what everyone else does. And just start from the beginning and start it really filtered down like this. And I think we can have a little bit more fun with this snare here. And you can see I added a little probably needs a little more mids. And what sometimes helps, you can also layer this with like a rim shot. Sometimes you hear that happen all the time. That's a more modern thing, I would say. You hear that a little bit more. So sometimes you can have these play off of each other. And then lastly, of course, you'd want to add an 808. And from there, you've taken the idea from another beat and you've just basically taken what you like and hopefully done something a little different. Now here, this is just for the sake of time. I haven't done a lot of really interesting stuff with this. Haven't changed the kick pattern, haven't really changed the tempo, but this is one way you can use another someone else's beat as inspiration if they send something to you and hopefully make it your own out of this. And this is the beat we come up with in the end. Anyway, you get the idea. Hopefully you learned something.